Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to get started in just a second. Um, okay, so welcome everyone to our Matara practice. And we are, today is going to be an extended practice session, which means that we're going to spend the first part of our time in practice, working through the practice itself, and then we'll take a break. Probably about in like an hour and a half, so 12:30 Eastern time. So an hour and a half from now, we'll take a break, and then we'll come back, maybe like a 10-minute break, because we need a little bit of time after we practice Matara, as I've discovered in my practice. So we're going to take a little break, come back, and then I will we'll have extended time for discussion or questions. So as we're going through the practice, please just make a note of questions that you may have about what we're going through. The text is coming soon, so we don't have a written text yet. I have a text. I'll say that I have a written text, but it's not quite ready to release because there are energetic things that we're still working through in the practice, but it's all becoming a lot more stable as well. So when that becomes super stable, then we'll release that text for your personal practice. And again, so this is my Tara, and we still have our green Tara practice that we do. So my Tara is an extension of green Tara. And the central figure in this practice, Tara, is of course green Tara, which you see right behind me. You also see Milarepa up beside Tara, and there's also Medicine Buddha at the very top here. So I'm getting a little cluttered in my tankas behind me. So Tara, we call this the heart of Tara, this practice, and so working with the heart of Tara, we also work with white Tara, which appears within the heart of green Tara in this practice. Okay, so Tara is, for me, a practice that evokes the mother. It is also something that was, I would say, transmitted to me, downloaded to me while Lama Justin and I were in India this March. On pilgrimage, visiting sacred mother sites of Chinnamasta and Kali, and of course Tara, and really, being deeply connected to these sites and just having these experiences where I just kind of got visions of these practices that that we'll go through today. So I can talk about this more later in the discussion. So it's good to see so many people coming in. And of course, this is going to be recorded. So this is on Crowdcast for a reason. So you can come back at any time, and take a look at that as well. Okay. Let's begin. Because if I just start talking, I'll just be talking for hours and hours. And I want to save that for later. Once we have our practice in. The practice is the most important thing, so I just want to always point that out. We can sit around and talk, and we can sit around and have discussions, and we can, read our books, and that's all really important. But I want you all to be careful that reading and discussing and talking doesn't actually begin to replace the place of practice. The place of actually experiencing mind and body, experiencing the movement of energy, experiencing the clarity, the openness that the practices facilitate, you know. As someone who is, you know, um, who had to, someone who came into practice really just wanting to absorb all the material that I could absorb, like read all the books, go to all the teachings. And that was wonderful the first few years. That's, of course, really important. But I was so fortunate, to enter into a 3-year retreat where it was like you had to practice, right? You were just sitting and practicing. Of course, we were doing movement as well. We were doing yoga, but, you were just practicing for, 20 hours a day. You were practicing in your sleep, and I'm so grateful for that experience, and so, I said I wouldn't keep talking, but I'll just say this. Some of us use the study, like the reading, the going to teachings, empowerments, and everything. We can actually turn that into spiritual materialism, and that becomes a way that we bypass actually sitting and watching our minds. And experiencing our minds and experiencing our bodies, all that becomes a bypass. A really helpful ratio that my root teacher gave us when I was studying is that you should spend 2/3 of like your practice time actually practicing, or 2/3 of like your spiritual time, wherever, however we want to label that. So 2/3 of your time should be actually practicing, right? Should actually be meditating, chanting, doing movement, asana, whatever, your main practice is. And then 1/3 of your time should actually be studying, So that should be the reading and the writing and the reflecting and, and so forth, right? So keeping that balance is really important. Like, reading a book isn't going to get you enlightened. Sitting and watching your mind is going to get you enlightened. Sitting and watching your mind, being informed by literature and the research and, the writings of the great masters, to write the scriptures and everything. That informs the practice, but you actually have to do the practice. Reading a book isn't practicing. It is informing our practice, but it is not practice itself. So just being really careful about that in your practice. So we'll begin the practice now. For those of you who are new, we're going to please, I want to say this now before we start the practice, is that really I encourage you to have agency in this practice, in any practice actually. I want you to have the agency to make decisions about how you choose to be in relationship to practice. Like, maybe something in the instruction that I give is not appropriate for you, and so don't do that. Like, if I tell you to shift your attention to something and you're like, oh, I can't do that, then don't do it. If it gets overwhelming, take a break, right? Like, just be an agency. Don't try to hurt yourself because you're being told to. Don't hurt yourself because you trust me, But also, here's the contradiction, right? Also, I also want you to be uncomfortable. I want you to push yourself. I want you to take risks as well. There's no growth without risk, right? You can't grow in comfort. This is why we're experiencing so much of the injustices that we're experiencing. This is why we experience so much systematic violence, from systems of racism and patriarchy and transphobia and everything, because there is this tendency to center comfort, and that comfort becomes an act of violence, because in comfort, you're not growing, you're not evolving. It's like, we talk about Grace Lee Boggs and James Boggs, their book, Evolution and Revolution, or Evolution and Revolution. talk about, change, talk about quick change and slow change, but change doesn't happen until you actually begin to hold space for the discomfort, right? Um, and so I think Matara, see, I told you, like, this is what happens. Like, I can't stop talking now. Um, so I'm just gonna say this, I promise you, I'm just gonna say this one last thing. Yeah, when we enter into practice, so some of you, you're also, I get this all the time after my tar. It's like, oh, this practice is so hard. There's so much going on. I didn't feel good doing this. And this is the point isn't to feel good. The point is to get free. I'm not interested in creating experiences of happiness for you. I'm not interested in making you comfortable. I'm interested in getting you free. I'm interested in pushing you through the binaries, through the extremism. I'm interested in pushing you through duality, so you can come into this experience of space where there's this incredible ability to hold everything, to love everything, to be in relationship with everything, and to have agency over everything, instead of everything having agency over you. You know, that doesn't often feel good when you're doing the work to get there, but there are experiences that begin to help us to feel more open and spacious. And from those experiences of spaciousness, yes, happiness arises, joy arises, comfort arises, right? But that all just holds the primary work of discomfort as we're moving through our pain, our heartbreak, into this place of non-duality, non-binaryism, into the essence of mind itself, right? And so this is what Ma is like digging up for. It's like she's dancing through our mind, she's dancing through our bodies, and she's unlocking things. She's letting things rise to the top, within our consciousness, into our awareness. And that's painful, that is painful. But I want you to trust the mother in this. And I know many of you are new to this idea of the mother, right? But this is Tara, so this is an expression of the mother. Just like, the Mother Mary here is an expression of the mother. What was an expression? Durga, Kali, Chinnamasta, Kuan Yin, Mary Magdalene. Like, I mean, there's just so many expressions of the mother. And to an extent, this father figure is also an expression of the mother, because the mother and the father, they're not about gender, they're not about sex, they're not about the binary in the way that we understand the binary within this reality. When we talk about the mother, we're just talking about this cosmic consciousness, that's not about gender ultimately, but it's about life and movement and nurturing and love. This is about love, and being loved. This is about accepting love. This is why also this is painful for some of us, because we are being loved in this practice. We're being loved in the practice. And some of us don't do well with receiving love. That is an edge for many of us, including myself, receiving love, because receiving love means that we're seen. And as we go through Matara, it's a lot of being seen. There's a lot of opening up. And so I want you to be conscious of that. Okay. So anyway, enough talking. Let's get to practicing. Hello to everyone who just joined. We're going to start practicing. We'll practice to about 12:30, 12:40, or another hour and a half. And then we're going to take a break, because we'll need a break after this practice. And then we'll come back and finish this discussion and take questions, and I'll, explain more parts of the texts that we're working with, okay? So let's begin, everyone. And again, just coming into a position that feels appropriate for you. to begin our practice together. I want to start with evoking the mother. And we began this, we started this practice last Sunday. And evoking the mother, using this chant, Om Matara Soha. Om, this universal seed consciousness, the sound of all consciousness, all phenomenal reality. Or Matara, Mother Tara, Soha. So Soha, basically, hey, here I am, come here. Please make a place here in this practice. So we want to start with that. So again, Om Matara Soha, and this is calling the mother into the space. Okay. So I'll begin. You can sing with me. This is more of a singing thing than a chanting. Okay. Om Matara Uzoa. Om Matara Uzoa. Om Matara Uzoa. Om Matara Uzoa. So calling the mother into the space, and I wonder if you can just turn your mind just to noticing the energy around you, the energy also in your mind, if appropriate, the energy in your body, just noticing how even in this initial practice, how the mother begins to show up. We begin to shift our attention into our breath. You can breathe through the nose and out of the nose, or through the nose and out of the mouth. Just experimenting, checking in with what feels appropriate for you. If you can't be with the breath right now, that's fine. If you can't, allowing the breath, just kind of slow down. I invite you to shift your attention to your heart center and just noticing, again, the breath, as we shift the breath down to the heart center, breathing in and out of the heart center. And placing a palm on the heart center can be really stabilizing as well. And as we're breathing in and out of the heart center, I invite you to reflect on something that you're grateful for, something or someone. As you breathe in, just imagining that this in-breath begins to deepen this energy of gratitude in the heart center. And if you feel resourced enough, this is just an optional practice, but you can imagine just breathing into the heart center and holding the breath in the heart center. And as you hold the breath, just dropping the attention down into the heart center and just dropping into the building intensity of the breath, the building intensity of the prana, the life force energy in the heart center. And holding that for as long as you want, actually, for as long as you can, for as long as it feels appropriate. And then just releasing that. Imagine that you're just releasing that exhale out the top of the head. Okay? So just trying that. We're just going to try this just for a minute, just working at your own pace. So breathing in, holding the breath, connecting to the energy of gratitude. Imagine that energy of gratitude intensifies with the breath, with the prana, just feeling that intensity. And when you're ready, exhaling up out the top of the head. Okay. Whenever you're ready, just feeling this energy of gratitude circulating through our experience. You may be feeling warm, if you're feeling a little dizzy or out of it, just continue working with me. We're going to get down into the earth. If it gets even more intense, just lying down, having a drink of water would be really helpful. But I invite you to shift your attention with me down to the seat, noticing the weight of the body. Noticing the sensations of the body resting on the seat. Shifting our attention even lower, touching into the earth. The floor that we're on is an expression of the earth. And even as we touch into this floor, this expression of the earth, we can also remember the land, the earth that we're practicing on, remembering the land by its ancestral, indigenous name. And when I touch into the earth, I love also to remember the people who cared for this land well before colonization in this country, particularly on the land that I'm on now. I remember those people. I remember the name that those communities had for this land as well. As I touch into the earth touches me back. As the earth touches me back, it is holding me. Let yourself be held. Whatever is coming up for you in this moment, drop it down into the earth. Let the earth hold it as it holds us. And as the earth holds us, the earth is loving us. And its love for us, the earth becomes alive. It becomes an expression of the mother. Let the earth have consciousness. Let the earth under you have love and intention for us to be free. Let the earth hold you in everything that you're struggling to hold. we turn our attention outward now into the space around us. I invite you to begin inviting your folks into the space. And again, your folks are your guides, your guardians, your deities, your lineages, your ancestors. Your teachers and guides and gurus. Inviting them to come into the space to sit in a circle around you. And again, only inviting those beings, those protectors, those folks who love us, who are keeping us safe. Some of us we all have very different relationships to our guides and folks. Some of us have a very clear, intense, direct relationship with our protectors. Some of us do not, and that's fine. They know who we are because they love us, they protect us. So we only simply open our minds and our hearts to allowing them to be here. And then we share this energy of gratitude with them. In whatever form makes sense. Sometimes I just like to imagine light kind of radiating from my heart center, and that begins to bathe them in this light. And they're illuminated. And in return, we imagine that they begin to radiate this energy of care into the space around us. This energy of care can be felt in so many different ways, as warmth, as seen as light, or just it can be felt as a kind of heavier energy in the space around us. As I like to say, it can be felt as energy that is pregnant, which means that energy that is much more full of potential. So this energy begins to fill the space around us, and slowly this energy begins to kind of hold us, it blankets us. And to be honest, this energy is always happening. Like, our guides are always loving us. They're always sending this energy, but we don't connect to it. Again, so this is our time to intentionally connect to this energy that's always happening around us, regardless of if you believe in this or not. This is always happening for us. So allowing that energy to be consciously connected to, allowing that energy to slowly begin to circulate and move into the body, so sinking into the skin and our bones and our muscles, the tissue and our organs, and it gets into our blood. So circulate through the body, pumping through the heart, being absorbed by our cells and our molecules and our atoms. You're being bathed by this energy of care. And let yourself be bathed, let yourself be cared for. And let whatever obstacles, hesitancies, whatever woundedness around love that's there, let it arise, let it surface, and give it to the earth, give it to your folks around you to be held, but don't hold on to it. Some of us want to fix our woundedness around love, but the best way to fix it is to offer it to sources of refuge that can help us to hold it. Always offering, always giving up, always laying everything at the feet of the mother. as we will continue to do in the practice. So we begin to imagine that this energy in the body, this energy of care, begins to collect at the base of the spine. And you can imagine that this energy that's collecting at the base of the spine, which is the root chakra, is not just the care that we're receiving from our benefactors, but it's also the energy of gratitude that we've been cultivating. So that begins to mix together in this really potent dynamic energy and is collecting at the base of the spine. I'm inviting you just to take a few breaths, imagining that you're breathing in and out of the root chakra at the base of the spine, where this energy is collecting. And then we shift our breath, imagining that we're breathing up and down what we call the central column. So this column of energy that runs parallel to the spine, that runs from the root chakra to the seventh chakra at the crown of the head. We're just breathing up and down that column. So we breathe up, and we exhale down, back to the base. So turning our attention back to the root, the base chakra, where that energy is, and just imagining that the energy just begins to form into a pearl of light. And again, we're going to breathe this pearl of light from chakra to chakra, moving up to the seventh chakra. And we're going to do that by breathing into each chakra, holding the breath. And as we hold the breath, we're holding both the energy that's collected there as well as the breath. We're intensifying that. As we intensify the breath and the energy in that chakra begins to purify, it begins to balance. And then as we exhale, we imagine exhaling that breath and energy up to the next chakra. Okay, so let's begin. So beginning with the root chakra, we're breathing in to the root chakra, holding the breath. And now releasing that breath, exhaling it up to the second chakra, which is in our genitalia pelvis area. Releasing the breath and energy, imagining that second chakra begins to be purified and balanced, coming back again into balance. Okay. And again, we're also waking up the chakras as well to begin the main practice of Tara. Okay. So breathing into the second chakra, holding. Now exhaling the energy up to the third chakra, which is in our navel area. Okay. Releasing that breath there, breathing normally for a moment. I'm coming back to the third chakra, breathing into the third chakra, holding. Now releasing, breathing up to the heart chakra now, releasing that energy into the heart chakra. Okay, breathing normally for a second. And again, as the energy moves up and up the chakras are beginning to awaken. So you may feel energy shifts. You may begin to see colors and visions and everything. And that's okay. That's normal. Okay. Just always remember the earth under you. Remember that you're being held by your folks around you. Okay. So again, breathing into the heart center, holding. Exhaling, releasing up to the throat chakra. Okay, breathing normally. So one more time. Breathing into the throat chakra, holding. Releasing that breath up into the third eye, the sixth chakra. Breathing normally. Okay, coming back to the breath, breathing deeply into the third eye and holding. Releasing the breath up to the seventh chakra, which is at the crown of the head, just the top of the head. Okay. Releasing, breathing normally. So bring our attention back to the seventh chakra again. That pearl of light is in the seventh chakra. And as we inhale and exhale, we're going to exhale that pearl of light into the space just above, just in the space in front of us, just barely above eye level, about, it can be actually any number of feet in front of you. I actually like to imagine Tara being maybe about 6 or 7 feet in the space in front of me, okay? But you can have a position anywhere that makes sense for you. And again, we don't have to see anything, we don't have to feel anything, but just having this kind of trust that something's happening is really quite beneficial. And that's all we need to do, actually. That is the practice, is to trust that Tara is being evoked, through these practices, okay? So let's begin again, breathing into the seventh chakra, holding. As we exhale, exhaling that pearl of light, that ball of light into the space in front of us, okay? Coming back to a natural breath. And if you feel a lot of energy being stirred up, I encourage you to imagine just breathing deeply in. This is a cleansing breath, breathing deeply in. And as you exhale, exhaling down into the earth. So you're actually just flushing this energy down into the earth for the earth to hold. And as you get more, if you feel more unsettled, just keep doing that over and over again. Okay. So turning our attention back to our experience. So beginning this generation of compassion, we begin by just touching into our own discomfort. As you know, I love to use the word brokenheartedness. So where is your brokenheartedness today? And I wonder if you can turn your attention outward and begin to reflect on the brokenheartedness of literally every being in this world right now. Even the beings who don't even show it or who don't acknowledge it, the brokenheartedness, the discomfort, the suffering, the pain, the trauma, the aching, the woundedness of all beings, including the animals and plants, and trees and so forth, all the brokenheartedness. Just thinking that you're not alone in this brokenheartedness. You're not the only one who's scared and afraid or tired or overwhelmed and frustrated. You're not the only one. And then turn your attention to this aspiration to be free from this brokenheartedness, to have agency over this brokenheartedness. When I say freedom from brokenheartedness, what I really mean is that I want agency and space around the brokenheartedness. And then think that maybe all these other beings in the world also want the same thing. They want space and agency over this brokenheartedness. And then we give rise to this aspiration that may we all be free from this brokenheartedness, from the causes and conditions of brokenheartedness and suffering and pain. If you want to take this a little step further, even emphasizing the people that we cannot stand. Only if you feel resourced enough. This is not a requirement, but if you want to take it a step further to push take risks, that we even emphasize, even the people that we cannot fucking stand, may they be free. May we all be free from brokenheartedness and suffering. And may even the people that I can't stand be free. And then we gaze back up at this pearl of light, and it begins to respond to our aspiration. This is the aspiration that unlocks this energy. It awakens, which really is the seed of consciousness, our consciousness. It begins to radiate with an intense white light, and that white light begins to flood through not just this world, but all the worlds, all the places, all the times, both past, present, and future, even into the bardo, the spirit realms, into worlds and galaxies and universes. This light cascades, floods all the worlds, including ourselves, and it begins to purify, cleanse all the causes and conditions of suffering, all violence, all systematic injustice, all hate. Having cleansed all of this karma, this pearl of light recollects this light, and as that light is being reabsorbed, this pearl of light transforms into Matara. And again, we can see Matara as an expression of green Tara, just like the Tara just over my right shoulder here. Or we can see Tara as an expression of any being who is the embodiment of compassion, of this audacious aspiration to free beings from suffering. This is the mother. In our practice, we begin to first acknowledge her, and you can bow. If that feels appropriate, bowing to the mother, just acknowledging her. And then in our minds, we just begin to make offerings. We begin to make these audacious, overwhelming, luscious, rich offerings, and whatever that means for you. This is the point where we imagine our minds being filled with the most precious things that we love, and we just give it. We lay it at her feet. We surround her with these offerings, be it flowers and light and food and incense and perfumes, or cocktails and gold and jewelry, or pretty men, or wonderful cars and mansions, or Apple products. Whatever it is, it's not about censoring yourself. It's about going to the edge of what you're excited about and offering that to the mother. It doesn't matter if it's worldly, if it's if it's not dharmic, if it's not what a good practitioner should offer everything. Offer in a way that you're so unbelievably uncomfortable. Go there. Offer everything. Offer the things that you love, even if they're completely inappropriate, just offer them. Offer everything. Offer your enjoyments around sex. Offer your enjoyment that you get from smoking weed. Offer the enjoyment that sometimes you get from cussing people out. It doesn't matter, just offer everything. Let the mother have all these things that we're so ashamed of. And then as we're making these offerings, I invite you to begin to confess the things that you struggle with, the things that you feel as if you've done that's harmed yourself or others around you, just offering that. The things that we may have said, things that we may have done, just offer that. We confess. Yeah, I fucked that up, and I confess it. I hurt this person, and I confess it. Just let it go. Let the mother have it. Lay it at the feet of the mother. We also offer our aversion. So we offer all the ways in which we're just like not into this. So we offer even that. Let the mother have it. We lay everything at the feet of the mother. We even offer any other forms of suffering that we're struggling with. Maybe we have hate in our heart, we offer that. Maybe there's depression, we offer that. Maybe there's loneliness, we offer that. Maybe there's trauma, we offer that. The brokenheartedness, we offer that. These offerings are just skillful ways for us to get into the habit of just saying, of learning how to offer everything, both the pleasant and the unpleasant, because the offering to the mother, and the mother sees his offerings not in the same way that we see them. She just sees it as energy, she sees them as expressions of our enlightened mind. We're the ones with the problems with these things. We're the ones who label these things good and bad. It's our duality that gets in our own way when trying to be with the mother. So offer the suffering, offer the fatigue, the brokenheartedness. Give everything to the mother. You can imagine just laying it at her feet. And as you lay it, you can just imagine just laying it, just like placing it at her feet and just backing away. Don't try to grab onto it again. Just back away and say, you know what? I've put it at the feet of the mother. Don't try to pick it up again. Just let it go. And if you need to sing the theme song, from that movie, that Disney movie, Let It Go, just sing that. Let it go, let it go. I want to call that movie the Ice Queen, but it's not the ice. It's Frozen, yeah. But I always want to call it the Ice Queen. I guess if we're called the Ice Queen, it'll be a completely different movie about something that children would not be able to watch. Anyhow, you should offer your humor as well, and your jokes, and your joy. Offer your joy to the mother, and offer your gratitude to the mother. I invite you to ask the mother to never abandon us. As we can complete this section, just ask her to just never leave us. And the truth is that she will never leave us. It's impossible for the mother to leave us, but we ask anyway because it creates a connection to the mother. It creates devotion to the mother. Just ask her never to leave us. And again, finishing up and just saying everything to the mother. Everything. Again, everything. Over and over again, everything to the mother. Whenever you're moving through your day and everything gets really intense, this is like a bulldozer for me. It's like I just imagine I'm in this bulldozer. I'm just like shoveling, pushing all this shit, all this crap, all this junk. I'm like, everything, even mother, please take this shit and just leave it. Let it go. be the ice queen and just sing the song, let it go, let it go. That's the only lyrics I know to that song. And then in this space, now just offering whatever prayer you want to offer. And make this space the space where you're developing a personal relationship with the mother. Just like talk to the mother. It's not about rituals, it's not about honorific language, and just talk to the mother and say, this is what I need. This is what I need for myself. This is what I need for others. Supplicate the mother on behalf of others as well. And after you finish your prayers, your supplications, then in that moment, Tara becomes real. She's just real. She's here. And we step into the space of trust and belief in her presence. As we step into the space, we imagine that Tara gazes down at us and we gaze up at her, and our eyes meet, and there, in this meeting, she simply sees everything. Everything that we attempt to hide and run away from, she sees. The brokenheartedness, our violence, our pettiness, but also our joy and our gratitude and our beauty. She sees everything. And as she acknowledges us, she is pleased with us in our practice. And then she begins to make offerings to us, and she begins to offer back to us all of our favorite things. She begins to offer us the desires of our hearts. She offers love, and our practice is simply open and accept that. Slowly we begin to imagine that Tara begins to emanate this beautiful white lotus. And she reaches down and places that lotus on the top of our head. So beneath the crown of our head is our seventh chakra, and imagine that there's a lotus, which is the color violet. There's a closed lotus, which is the color of violet, our seventh chakra. So we begin to imagine that that white lotus that the mother has placed on our heads begins to melt into light, into white light, and begins to be absorbed down into the seventh chakra, absorbed by this closed violet lotus, and this lotus begins to open, radiating this violet light within that chakra, the seventh chakra, and our chakra begins to awaken. Down in our sixth chakra, which is our third eye, we begin to imagine that there's a closed lotus, the color of indigo. And the white light begins to sink down into our sixth chakra, our third eye, absorbed by that indigo bud, and that bud begins to open and radiate indigo colored light through the third eye, and our third eye awakens. And our throat chakra, our fifth chakra, is a closed lotus, the color blue. And the white light from our third eye begins to flow down to be absorbed by this closed to blue lotus, and this blue lotus of the throat chakra begins to open. Awakening the lotus. In our heart chakra, there's a closed lotus, the color green, and the white light from our throat chakra begins to flow down into our heart chakra, being absorbed by the green closed lotus, and that green lotus begins to open, radiating green light throughout the heart chakra. And you can even use this mudra here. This is like the mini lotus opening mudra. This is the grand mudra, the grand lotus opening mudra. This is kind of like the lotus mudra of awakening and enlightenment, and this is the smaller lotus opening of just awakened energy within the body. So in our third chakra, in our navel area, is a closed lotus, the color yellow, the solar plexus, the sun. And so the white light from the heart chakra begins to radiate down into the solar plexus. That yellow bud begins to absorb that light, and the yellow bud begins to awaken. It blooms in yellow light, like sunshine begins to radiate in the third chakra. In our second chakra, in the genitalia pelvis area, is a closed orange lotus. And the white light from the solar plexus begins to flow down to the second chakra, being absorbed by this orange closed lotus. And slowly this orange lotus begins to awaken, to blossom. Our second chakra awakens, radiating this orange light throughout the chakra. Shifting our attention down to our root chakra, looking at the closed red lotus. And the white light begins to flow down from the second chakra into the root chakra. This red lotus begins to absorb that light, and the red lotus begins to slowly open, radiating a red light throughout the root chakra. The root chakra is awoken, is awakened. We imagine that this white light begins to sink down into the earth, touching and blessing the sacred earth under us, and the earth becomes alive in a way that it wasn't alive. The mother of the earth awakens even more, and we shift our attention down into the earth. As our attention shifts down into the earth, we ask the mother of the earth itself, for permission to become Matara. The earth touches us back, and as the earth touches us back, it gives us permission. And as we're given permission, we begin to imagine ourselves as Matara, as Green Tara. And we simply begin just by telling ourselves we are Tara. We are Tara. are Tara. I am Tara. And you can imagine yourself as green Tara. You can imagine yourself in the reflection of whomever you see as the mother in front of you. You are Tara. And as we move into this relationship with Tara, it's okay that we have experiences where part of our experience is Tara and the other part of our experience is being held by Tara. Where the other part of our experience is the discomfort, the brokenheartedness, and Tara is just holding it. That's okay. That's all part of the practice. So slowly we will begin our chanting practice. Okay, in our chanting practice, we're just going to start by just sitting within the form of Tara, sitting within this contemplation that we are Tara, and then letting Tara really hold us, letting Tara be with us in this way. We are Tara, but we're also being held by Tara. We're being held. We are the mother, and we're being held by the mother at the same time. That is always the situation. We are, but we also are being held by. So sitting with that in that reflection as we begin our mantra, Om Tara Tutara Ture Soha. Os O Tare Tu Tare Tu Re So something a little new. I want you to imagine that you, as Tara, essentially begin to rain compassion all over this world, as if this world is on fire, which it is on fire, and that you, as Tara, somehow from your experience, you begin to rain compassion all across the world, all over the land, all over people. And this raining of compassion begins to pacify the violence, the injustice, the trauma that all beings are experiencing. And a helpful visualization that I use is to imagine that I, as Tara, become rain clouds. And my mind just becomes this huge rain cloud, and I begin to rain like this rain of compassion, these droplets of compassion throughout the whole world, and drenching people, drenching the land, drenching plants, drenching things, and everything begins to be purified and cleansed and calmed. And all the hate, the duality, the extremism, the woundedness, the trauma and the woundedness from which all this violence emerges from is erased, is cleansed, is purified. So try that out. resting our minds, letting go of the visualization, turning our attention to the sound of the drum, letting the sound of the drum take care of us just for a moment. Doing a few cleansing breaths, inhaling deeply, exhaling down through the body into the earth. And we shift into our last visualization. So again, we begin to call forth white Tara. As we do that, we first begin to reflect on all of our fear. Everything that we're afraid of, all of our terror. Imagine that all of that energy begins to collect in our heart center as Tara. And that there's this intense white light that begins to radiate in our heart center. And that fear is all consumed. It's consumed, it's purified, it's completely evaporated. And we are free from terror, from fear, from being afraid. And then slowly, white Tara begins to emerge within our heart centers. And in the heart of white Tara, she begins to radiate this intense white light. And this white light floods again through all the worlds, including this world. And it begins to absorb and purify all fear, particularly all the fear that we have of being in a relationship and taking care of our brokenheartedness. So as we continue the last part of this mantra practice, just imagine that this white light, white Tara from our heart center just radiates throughout the whole world, cleansing the world, people, animals, plants, and land of all fear, of all terror. ta re tu re so ta re tu 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 re so ta re tu 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 ta re tu re so 운자레 주 자레 주레 소아 운자레 주 자레 주레 소아 응자레 두사에 주레 We turn our minds to our sacred breath as Tara. And we begin to reflect on all the beings in all the world who struggle to breathe because of illness, particularly COVID-19. And we begin to think about those beings who cannot breathe because of social injustice and oppression. We begin to breathe on their behalf. And our sacred breath as Tara begins to alleviate all the obstacles that all beings have to breathing, that our breath begins to heal bodies, to clear passageways, and that our breath begins to disrupt systems of violence, and power, and abuse. As we breathe in, we remove all obstacles that all beings have to breathe. As we breathe out the energy, the light of compassion that begins to disrupt every system of violence ever created. We also remember those beings who are journeying through the spirit realm, or the bardo. We are also removing all of their obstacles so that they may continue to move through the spirit realm and to move into other parts of their journey as well. We remove their trauma, their brokenheartedness, their unresolved business. We take that away from them and leave them with spaciousness and joy and happiness. Breathing their brokenheartedness into our bodies as Tara, where it is completely purified and cleansed with the help and energy of white Tara. We breathe out nothing but clarity, wisdom, openness, peace, joy, happiness. That all the worlds, both the living and the dead, are cleansed of all violence and replaced with the liberatory experience of deep compassion and love. We take one final inhale, breathing in all the leftover violence, pain, heartbreak, and all the worlds, including the spirit realm. It is purified in our bodies, and we exhale nothing but light and compassion. That all the worlds are free from violence. And as we begin to transition out of our practice, we gaze back up at Tara, Ma Tara, who has held the space for this practice, who has guarded this space, who has energized the impact of this practice. We thank her for her guidance and we ask for forgiveness if we've done anything that was not in accord with her intention, that was not compassionate or not loving. We ask for forgiveness. And that she accepts our apologies and then gazes down at us lovingly. And she begins to slowly melt into light, and that light, that white light, is absorbed into our heart centers. As Tara, we also begin to imagine that white Tara begins to dissolve into white light back into our heart centers. We ask our circle of care, the circle who has held us and guided us also during this practice. We thank them for the love and their guidance, and we invite them to return back to where they came from to be with us. And lastly, our bodies as Tara, we begin to dissolve into white light. This white light is compressed down and absorbs down into a pearl of white light. We imagine that this white light, this pearl of white light, is our consciousness. And slowly we begin to imagine that this pearl of white light begins to dissolve into emptiness. And that this emptiness, and that this pearl of light, as it dissolves into emptiness, that our awareness begins to saturate emptiness itself, where we rest within the ultimate expression of the Mother. And so slowly we begin to re-arise from emptiness back into this moment, back to the seat. Again, noticing the weight of the body, noticing the body making contact with the seat, noticing the earth under us, again, touching the earth, letting the earth hold us. If you can, if you feel resourced enough, taking three actually cleansing breaths with me. Um, Breathing deeply through the nose, and we're going to exhale through the mouth, imagining that we're just exhaling all this leftover energy, still energy out of the body. Okay. Using every hole opening in the body to expel this energy. Okay. So breathing. Okay. Two more times. And then last. Okay. Shake it out. Okay. All right. Everyone, thank you for your practice. We're going to take a 10-minute break, or we'll come back actually in 15 minutes. So it's on East Coast time. It's 12:41. So we'll be back. That doesn't make sense. So let's just break until 1. So 20 minutes. It just makes more sense. And in this 20 minutes is really important for you to hydrate, to get some water, hydrate really intensely. Secondly, I want you to move, to do asana, to walk, to stretch. That's really important. To try to stay in silence, to kind of continue to let this energy settle. This is really important. And lastly, any questions that you have been holding, please have those ready to ask. You can put those into the ask a question box here. So again, this is all being recorded. This is on Crowdcast. So all this is going to be available for us for the future. Okay. So please do everything that I just suggested, and we'll come back in, I guess, about 15 minutes now at the top of the hour. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your practice. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started again. For those of you who are around, um, welcome back. Um, so, um, so please use the ask a question box as well. If you have a question that comes up for yourself. Um, so I'm just going to start talking, and at some point, um, we will have a question and so forth. Um, so, when we talk about the essence of the mother, we're really talking about really the nature of emptiness itself. So you're talking about going into the ultimate expression of all phenomenal reality. Um, when we talk about the essence of phenomenal reality, we're actually just talking about simultaneously the essence of the mind itself. Our mind is the expression of ultimate reality. We'd say that the mother. Actually, we say that particularly in tantric traditions, that any female deity uh, is like the mother. Particularly in Tibetan Buddhist tradition, that any female deity is the mother of um, all Buddhists, which is the mother of all of us, because the feminine principle, um, the female principle is, how many people are on the call right now? How many people are here? Just like a roll call. Uh-huh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, great. Okay. I was just afraid that, like, oh, I'm just talking to nothing, which is what I do anyway. I actually just sit around and have conversations with myself often. Um, so that's good to hear. So just getting back to this, so we say that, like, Tara is the mother of all Buddhas because Tara and is an expression of space. So we talk about Tara. Some of you who've been around in practice, Vajrayogini, of Prajnaparamita. Like, these are the mothers. We say they're the mothers because without space, there would be nothing. There would be um, there would be no space for phenomena to arise, right? So this is one of the reasons we talk about the mother in this way. We talk about Tara particularly as being the mother, because she is an expression of space. Being an expression of space, her practice, and really the practice of any mother, is about entering into spaciousness. So it's about moving from contraction and shutting down into openness, vulnerability, into like all the boundaries just being collapsing, and that is a painful process. So when we do Matara, for instance, like the pain that you're experiencing is actually the suffering of moving from contraction to openness, or from being bound into freedom. right? And then that journey from being bound into freedom is something that it cost us. There's a there's a cost associated from it's associated around moving into freedom, and that cost is actually letting go of the things that we don't need. It's letting go of ego fixation, right? So when we start entering into space, there's not there's not these walls that we're using to define who and what we are, you know and this is how ego operates, right? The ego is really about using things around it in order to figure out what it is. It's about comparing, contrasting. Well, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not this person, I'm not that thing, so therefore I am this. But when you have these things, that we've been using to define who we are, when those get removed, then there's an experience of panic that arises. We get panicked when we can't define ourselves anymore. We get panicked when like the things that we've used to define ourselves are no longer there. That brings us into like a discussion around grief, right? Because grief is really about trying to be in a relationship to loss, trying to be in a relationship to something that's no longer there. So grief is actually a practice that's about the ego freaking out and trying to redefine itself after something it's been using to define itself is no longer there. So this thing is, it can be an object, it can be a person, right? It's Landslide, it's Stevie Nicks' song. Well, I've been afraid of changing because I've built my whole life around you. We're doing that all the time. We're building this sense of self and who we are around these things that are destructible, they're impermanent. So you get that kind of like, you get the dilemma that we're in this, because ultimately we're trying to move into spaciousness, right? And spaciousness is, it's the wide open. Emptiness is wide open and it's spacious, and that there's a freaking out if we actually don't have a sense that that we're more than just this ego. We're more than just this, like, this this autonomous self, which is why I call the ego in my work, right? This autonomous self, this independent self, right, that uses things around it to define itself. And so the mother comes in a really basic way and just actually begins to disrupt all the things that we're using to define who and what we are. Um, and that's, again, that's where the pain comes from. I think about Tibetan Buddhism, and think about Tibetan language, and the word for the world is Jigten. Um, and Jigten, that can be spelled so many different ways, but usually I see it spelled as like phonetically as Jig, so jig, and ten, ten, ten. And ten often means like foundation or holder or something like that. Jig is like destruction. And so Jigten, which is the word for the world, actually means destructible foundation. So it's a foundation that will not last, and that's the word for the world. And so in that worldview, Tibetans enter into a relationship with phenomenal reality and the world, where the world is already being called out as being impermanent to begin with. That's profound, but that lack of impermanence actually points us back to the mother, because the mother holds, that intense openness, that intense spaciousness. And so when we're moving into, like, at the end of the practice, we dissolve into emptiness. So this pearl of light, which I write into most practices that I develop. This pearl of light moving up and down the central channel, that's just poa. Poa is transference of consciousness. So at the moment of our death, we can begin to practice allowing the consciousness, which is symbolized or encompassed as this um, pearl of light, this ball of light, moves up the central channel to the top of the head. And then we expel it out the top of the head. And usually in the practice, we expel it into the heart of a deity or the heart of a guru or something like that. Or you expel it and imagine that you're like expelling it into um, a pure land, a pure realm, right? Which is like a heaven, and every enlightened Buddha, every Buddha has a pure realm. So Tara has a pure realm, Medicine Buddha has a pure realm, and so forth and so on, right? Um, but I kind of incorporate Poa into every practice because this is just something that we should just get used to doing. And Poa is like, it's like, oh, everyone's like, oh, it's such an esoteric practice, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really have to be that esoteric, really. Like, you've been doing it, and I have even told you what you're doing and you're cool with it. But this pearl of light, again, is our consciousness, so this consciousness, so we're collapsing our consciousness into this pearl of light. We're moving it up the central channel, out of the central channel, right? And this consciousness, can become whatever we want it to become because that is the nature of our consciousness. We can, like, it is everything and anything. It is the mother. It is whatever, right? But we tend to wrap the consciousness around this really limited, kind of sense of self, which creates these boundaries that we're living in. So when we're moving outside of these boundaries, it can be quite disrupting for us if we're not being held in doing that. So often, we always talk about, everyone always has questions about, why do I feel a certain way after the practice? Why do I feel energetically like this or that? Because also the energy body is getting a really intense workout in this practice. So we're working out the chakras, like we're going through the chakras twice. The beginning of the practice, we're just kind of like getting the chakras activated as we're doing the breath, as we're doing that pranayama, moving up the spine. And then as we come back down, we're awakening the energy of the chakras, right? Every chakra has a color, particularly the 7 chakras that I'm practicing with. There are like, I think 70,000, 80,000 chakras, in Tibetan Tantra, we only focus on 4 chakras, which like I tend not to do that because it makes more sense in my practice to focus on the 7 main chakras, and that run parallel to the central channel, which we call the Uma or the Sushumna, depending on the tradition you're coming out of. And if you do yoga, like it's Sushumna. If you do like Tibetan Tantra, it's like Uma. It's probably some more names. So I just call it the central channel, really. So the central channel, so these chakras lined up along the central channel, right? And so we're awakening the chakras, and that is something that can be quite jolting for us, particularly as many of us, we hold a lot of trauma in the chakras. We hold a lot of like intense, heavy energy. So when you start getting the chakras moving, you start awakening that energy, you start moving that energy through. It's like a detoxifying, you're detoxing as you're getting the chakras moving. So the chakras, again, they're like energy centers, right? And one way to think about the chakras is that, you think about the body, both the physical body, the energetic body, as this kind of energy center into itself. and we're surrounded by a bioenergy field. Um, and this bioenergy field is moving through the body, is moving from the top of the body down, is also moving from the bottom of the body up. And so as these streams of energy, as these streams of energy are passing each other, rubbing against each other, they create these whirlwinds, these whirlpools rather of energy. So as these streams of energy pass each other, this whirlpool of energy is just whirling, and that's a chakra. That's a chakra. And so these chakras can whirl really quickly, or they can shut down. And so when we're feeling sick, when we're feeling out of it, usually the chakra has is not really functioning, it's not really whirling. And so we have pranayama to help with that. We have these energy practices. Reiki is another modality that we use to awaken the chakras. But in this practice, we're just going through and visualizing awakening the chakras. Like, we're using the colors, we're using breath, we're using pranayama, we're using prana, which is life force energy. And prana is a very neutral energy within our experience. Kundalini is also another body energy. Kundalini is an expression of Shakti. Shakti is the energy of the mother, right? And I would say you can compare that to the Holy Spirit. Like, the Holy Spirit is like the animating energy of the Trinity, particularly the animating energy of God. And so Shakti is like the animating energy of the mother, of the universal kind of cosmic feminine energy. When it is dormant in the body, we call it Kundalini, and it's dormant at the base of the spine. So we do pranayama, we do asanas, we do visualization to awaken pranayama. It's called Kundalini Yoga, really. And Kundalini energy begins to awaken at the base of the spine and begins to creep up the central channel, and the symbol for that are snakes. So there are these snakes that begin to kind of move up the central channel. And of course, that symbol was adopted by like the Greeks, or the Greeks or the Romans, the Greeks, and now it's like the symbol, the Hippocratic oath, that's like, I forget exactly what it's called, but it's the medical symbol that we see, which is the snakes twining, moving up the staff, I don't know if that's international. It's definitely in the States. That's the symbol that we're using. So that's Kundalini. That's Kundalini Yoga. So you begin to see the ways in which even modern sciences and Western science has taken all these things, from these ancient traditions. And so we have these symbols. We're surrounded by all these symbols, and we don't even know what they are anymore because they're so out of context, now. So I don't know what I just said, but I'll just read the questions. When I evoke the mother, I feel connected to Guadalupe, Tonazen, Kolike, Pachamama. Any advice on bringing in the mother and my ancestry with the mother? Any advice on bringing in the mother and my ancestry with the mother of my adopted faith? Well, there's no separation, at all. So the separation is what we're creating. The mother exists in everything, in every tradition, every embodiment of the mother, right? So you just begin to see it as one, right? I see like like Mary, the mother of Jesus, the Virgin Mary, as an expression of the mother. I see Mary Magdalene as an expression of the mother. I see, I see Tara as an expression of the mother. It's all just one. They're all just expressions of the same cosmic feminine energy, and we just bring it together in the practice. So when I say visualize Tara in front of you, you also hear me say, Let the mother become whomever in your life, any figure in your life, be it a deity or a person that most embodies compassion, most embodies liberation, because that's the mother as well. you know like the mother is just everywhere. It's manifesting in everything, and in gestures and bodies and people. Indeed, it's like the mother is just all these different expressions. They're just doorways into the same energy, that has been evoked and embodied and thought of and practiced and worshipped differently by different cultures and past throughout human history. Um, So when you evoke the mother, feel connected to how the mother. That's an important thing to pay attention to. When you evoke the mother, what are you being led to? Like, what are you feeling into? What are the visions that you're getting? Sometimes when I evoke the mother, when I go into the practice, there are just people that I'm drawn to, and for me, those people are deeply embodying this energy for me. And you have to pay attention to that as well. Yeah. No problem. It was Sergio. Thank you. And we've talked about this too, Sergio. We've talked about this quite a bit, and I've talked with some of you quite a bit about this. But some of us, we come through the Orthodox Buddhism, right? We come through these Orthodox practices, and what we're trying to do in Bhumi Sparsha is to disrupt that orthodoxy, and just to say, we're trying to get to the root, the heart of this, you know like Tara isn't this anonymous, separate, autonomous deity. Tara is manifesting in every culture, and every culture calls Tara something different. You know, maybe for me, growing up here, like Tara was Harriet Tubman, for instance. You know, um, and Tara was literally, here's my theory, right? Harriet Tubman was literally an emanation of Tara, who actually literally would go into, Tara comes into the samsara to pull people out, to take them from one place to another. Tara means star, so Tara means her practice is really about navigation from one place to another, and that's exactly what Harriet Tubman was doing. She was taking people from one place to another. And we have to begin to see these connections in our lives and say, oh, Tara was actually a freedom fighter, right? And so forth and so on, things like that. That's what we're trying to connect to in the Bhumi Sparsha. That's right. Harriet Tubman followed the North Star, so she was following Tara. You have to connect all of this. You have to start connecting it, and I know for those of us coming out of Tibetan Buddhism, particularly, I know not all of you come from that, but like for those of us coming out of Tibetan Buddhism, there's a strict kind of like these boundaries and borders where we're like, no, Tibetan Buddhism is a separate autonomous thing that's never existed, which is not true. Like Tibetan Buddhism and Tantra is just another expression of something that has been happening for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, right? And there's an interconnectedness with all practices. And the deeper you get into that, the more you begin to see the commonality of spiritual paths, and maybe some religious paths as well, but definitely religious paths like this, like the mystical, esoteric paths. Like there's a commonality, there's a deep commonality here. Um, that we can connect to. Yeah, there are all kinds of gods and goddesses and energies that are associated with these different paths. And really, we navigate that by just developing respect. It's, Tara is Oshun as well. You have to recognize that, and that's going to help you give rise to a deep respect. Kali is Tara, Anjana, as right? Oh, of course. Thank you, Jude. I would have figured you would have figured that term out. Yeah, the staff of Hermes. But I'm getting distracted. Like Anjana, going back to Anjana, it's like the Mahavidyas, like the mothers, the Durga and Kala and Tara and Lakshmi and And of course, I completely forget. I'm looking at my altar. I'm just going to name the, Chinamasta, and so forth, right? Um, so these are all the mothers, the expressions of all the mothers. Um, they're all just the same mother. So you can throw Mary into that. For for me, Mary Magdalene is a very strong expression. I feel I have a very strong connection to Mary Magdalene. Does that make me less Buddhist? Does that make me less whatever? No, it just means that like I am resonating with how the mother shows up for me, in my life. So having said that, um, I want to offer you the agency to so many of us. And I have these conversations with folks who are struggling with who they come into Buddhism and they struggle with bringing their indigenous cultural ancestral practices into Buddhism. And they're, in the same way. I mean, I'm in the same boat. You're told, okay, you can't bring that into this. you know, you can't bring your ancestral indigenous practices into Buddhism, and that's just a falsity. That's not true. You can't absolutely bring your indigenous practice into Dharma. And the thing that people we perpetuate that false boundaries because people. Well, here's one thing. Here's one reason, right? And this isn't like, and I say this very clearly in the foreword to Lama Justin's book. I just always want to make this clear. I am not anti-Tibetan. This is not what this is. But what I'm interested in is understanding that, like, as Tibetans came to the West, particularly to this country, the religion is what was valued. And so when you start giving up that religion, when you start giving up control and you start telling people, okay, you can take this and do whatever you want with it, then you lose relevance in that. And there are Tibetan teachers who, like my teacher, who refuse to, like, actually teach you everything that you need to know necessarily. There's just basic things that they kept to themselves, because if they gave that away, what use would they be? That's a really hard place to be in. And so of course I come along and say, no, like, you have to bring your roots into the practice. And there are many people who suffer. They give up their ancestral practices, um, and they choose Buddhism over their ancestral practices. And you don't have to make that choice. You don't have to make that choice at all. Both can happen at the same time. This is what's happening in Buddhist Marsha. Like, you know, um, but anyhow, let me go to the next question. Um, is Anjana, when you said Father God are also manifest. Okay, one more time. When you said Father gods are also manifestations of the Mother, I kind of get that, I think, but was wondering if you could speak more to this. I don't mean like in a gender binary, but the energetic sense of father and mother energies, if that makes sense. I just think, yeah. I just think that the divine feminine consciousness is the dominant, is the energy, of the universe. Is the defining dominant energy of the universe, and there are just other energies that are a part of that. And I think this father energy is a part of that. I think, yeah, of course, the father energy feels different. This is where we come into the binary. Okay, so there's mother energy, then we get into father energy that feels more direct. It feels sharper. Not sharper isn't the word, but it feels more active, right? Where, and that's for a purpose. I think that's, of course, this is all stuff I'm just like thinking of recently, but you know, Shakti, mother energy, just is, it permeates everything, right? Um, and then there are these different expressions of energy, that feel more active, and then that's what we call the father energies, like the mother and the father energies, right? Um, and they're holding, um, they're balancing each other in a way. And I know that doesn't make any sense, but um, I don't believe that like the father is this whole separate autonomous thing. I don't feel like this father energy holds all phenomenal reality, but I think father energy is an expression within phenomenal reality, and phenomenal reality is being held by like this mother energy. But when you get into the ultimate of things, there's no such thing as father or mother. It's just emptiness. So this is the struggle that we engage in. We're trying to name and label things that ultimately there's no difference in, but there is a difference in how we're relating to it as unenlightened relative beings, who are actually trying to work into experiencing the ultimate as well. Um, Sometimes father energy feels like the ground, it feels like foundation. Mother energy feels like the space around everything. It feels like the air. It feels like dancing. It feels fluid. So mother energy is fluid, and father energy feels more stable, maybe. Um, and you have to be careful. Like it's easy to get kind of running around within these binary kind of like things, these binary ways of thinking about energies, and we have to be very careful about that. Um, Especially when we get into the relative, when we start thinking about gender, um, as well. I say that because like your gender doesn't necessarily mean that you have a closer relationship to certain energies. Um, you know, um, or if you express yourself outside the gender binary, it doesn't mean that like you can't ever, you know, embody these energies, that we think about in such binary ways, because that doesn't happen either. That's not the case either. Um, Tara emanates as male identified beings. Um, you know, um, Krishna emanates as female identified beings, you know. I mean, so that even disrupts the binary as well. Um, so that's an attempt. Dancing Shiva, So when you're visualizing making offerings to deities and protectors, do we need to be specific about what we offer to who? For example, if we have something, if we have offered something to Paul and Lamo, should we not then offer it to Tara? Also, is it appropriate to offer our creative work in these visualizations? So, so again, like we get into this place where we're the ones who are getting fixated on labels, where the point of the practice is to simply practice generosity. That's the point. It doesn't matter, like in the visualization, it doesn't matter what you offer. The point is that you're offering, because that is how we're touching into the nature of the deity in our experience, is through that opening. That opening comes with generosity. We're learning how to offer everything. That creates this opening for the deity to express itself. You know, you can offer anything creative work. It doesn't matter what you offer, you have to offer. And so what makes this even more dynamic is that we offer the things that we're super attached to. If you want to really energize a practice, offer the things that we're really attached to, offer the things that we can't stand. Get into that kind of offering play. Get into that offering realness. If this were a category in a ball, like the category is, you know, offer the shit that like excites the hell out of you. Um, offer your work, offer your art, offer whatever, gold and silver or whatever. I mean, that's not my thing, but like what do I value? What excites me? I like beauty. I like beauty. I love flowers. I love like sweet things and sweet smelling things. I love like sensual stuff. I love like the erotic. So you offer that. That's exciting for me. You offer that to the deity. And in your mind, you're just filling your mind up to like the limits of your mind with all these offerings, and you're just giving it away, you know? Um, um, so over and over again, just giving it away. Um, when we get into Paul and Lama, we get into the protector. Yeah, there's a tradition. If you're making physical offerings, there's a tradition that there are certain physical offerings that you would make to Paul. But like at the end of the day, it's like you offer what you have. Because Paul and Lama, the Paul and Lama Tara, these are enlightened expressions. Paul and Lama is just an emanation of Tara. Just to begin with, just the emanation. Every female deity and protector in Tibetan Buddhism is an expression of Tara, you know. But when we begin to work with worldly deities, so the deities that are not enlightened, but they're extraordinary, but they're not enlightened, so they have a lot of power to impact our lives. That's when we can start, when we make physical offerings to them, this is when we start thinking about particular kinds of offerings that we would make to them, because they're still ego in worldly deities. They're still ego beings. They're what do we say, egoistic beings. So if you're an egoistic being, you have things that you're going to like and dislike, and so you want to be in accord with that when you're working with these worldly deities, that we would find in Voodoo or in other traditions as well. But in Tantric Buddhism, all our deities are enlightened, right? In Tantra in general, all the deities are enlightened, so they see the nature of reality itself. And so they're more, there's nothing that we can offer them that they don't have. They don't need anything. This is for us to develop a sense of generosity and openness. Let's see. There's another question here. So last week at practice, and this week I had suddenly had a strong heat in my body, like a fever. This time again as well, and it keeps coming back. Is that related to the practice in any way? Yes. Apart from that, I had no idea until you just said it, but I also often meet my deceased father at some point during my Tara. Yes. Today he was crying like he cried at the end of his life about the beauty of the sunrise, his love for the people in the world. I was wondering why he kept appearing, but now he spoke of Tara taking people from A to B, or from A to Z too. But that's neither here or there. My father did that all his life as he was a cab driver, and he wanted to be a pilot, but couldn't. In hospital, he was just watching flights on an app passing by nearby and watching their progress going from A to B. I never quite understood why that gave him such comfort until now. It's not a question, that last part, sorry. So yes. So just going back, you have a fever. Yes, that's the energy. That's prana, and that could be Shakti maybe. Prana. It's energy. So let's just say it's energy. It's energy, and that energy, often is felt as heat in our experience. So that's like things just kind of heat up, they boil up in the practice, and that's fine. And you just want to cool down. Of course, we're doing cleansing breaths, we're doing, earth center practices, movement, asana. So you just want to get that energy down again. But that's normal. I would say that's very normal in a way. Yeah. So heat means that energy is moving in the body, that we're untapping things. You're purifying, opening things, right? It's a beautiful story uh, about your father as well. Yeah, yeah. There's all kinds of things that happen within the practice, visions, and meeting folks that have moved on. Of course, that's wonderful, but that we shouldn't do the practice because we have these experiences. We do the practice because this helps us to develop compassion and wisdom that can get us enlightened. Um, the mother is an expression of emptiness. Um, to be honest, everything is an expression of emptiness. you know, we're an expression of emptiness. Everything is inherently empty. But there's an empty, but within this emptiness, there's a quality that we can call suchness, but it's a somethingness. In my language, I say something. There's something. In Tibetan we say luminosity. Also, um, so there's luminosity and emptiness. So within emptiness, there's a luminosity. Luminosity isn't about light, but it's about potential. That potential gives rise to phenomenal reality. It's from that potential that we have all of this. And it's back to that potential that we're trying to devolve back into, as we move towards enlightenment. With enlightenment, we're trying to see the nature of everything. As we enter into nirvana after enlightenment, we return back. We devolve back into the luminosity itself. How do you deal with high energy states post meditation? Have found this happens sometimes, and it makes me motivated but without direction. Advice. Um, Over time, what we're doing with these practices is learning how to be a container for the practices. You're learning how, you know, to hold. This is like Shakti, right? Shakti, again, is the expression of the mother's this energy, and we're learning how to hold that energy, to have agency over that energy instead of that energy having agency over us. And so even after practice, you can just direct that energy, you know. You can ground it, like even when we do earth touching practice, when you just let things go and land them in the earth, that's grounding the energy. Sometimes we're feeling kind of disembodied. And so doing some movement practice like asanas, is really good. Like doing shavasana at the end, just like corpse pose, you're just lying on the floor and letting the floor as the earth hold you and support you, just kind of hold you. That's a really good practice to ground Shakti. Eating is a really good way to kind of ground that energy as well. Earth element things is really good. If you're feeling particularly disembodied, lying on the ground, eating, having some water, um, walking, doing some walking, that's really good. Um, and just sitting in and with the energy is really good. Um, if you Now, I'm not encouraging you all to do that, obviously, but like if you have some really good natural cigarettes, cigarettes that don't have all the chemicals and the nicotine and tar and everything, like really like organic, natural like cigarettes or something like that. Doing that could be also really helpful as well if you do smoke. And sometimes I do smoke if I'm doing like really intense, heavy emptiness work, and I'm trying to get back into my body because the tobacco is earth. It's an expression of the earth, right? And you can do, if you choose to do that, then you can turn smoking. You can even have a pipe and you get some really good tobacco, but you can turn that into um, a smoke ritual as well. Because that's a puja. Actually, when you're burning something, when you're burning a substance like that, you turn that into a fire puja. When we burn incense, it's the same thing. You're burning something, you're using the element of fire to transmute, a type of more tangible element. Like you're using fire to transmute the earth elements into material that can be offered to other beings in other dimensions, other states, other consciousness. That's what we're doing when we burn incense. You're using the incense and the smoke. If you've ever sat a pipe ceremony, you know, a Native American indigenous pipe ceremony, that's a very similar thing. You're using the tobacco, the pipe to communicate to other beings. You're also, many things are happening in the pipe ceremony, including connectedness, belongingness, community belongingness. All of that's happening in the pipe ceremony. But when you're just sitting and smoking a cigarette, particularly because it becomes part of the ritual of trying to ground energy, trying to come back into the body, you can do the same thing. You smoke and you offer that smoke to other beings, as well. Um, there, um, when you start getting around really, so here's another way to talk about this. Like, if you read the stories of the Mahasiddhas, the 84 Mahasiddhas, which is an excellent text, I would read that. Um, when you start reading those stories of these really super realized, super accomplished spiritual beings, they were very eccentric, and you don't even have to read about it. You just go hang out with really incredibly realized beings. And like they have these eccentricities, which are weird, to say the least. Weird. Um, and these eccentricities are the ways in which they are having to manage the impact, the reality of migrating between the ultimate and the relative. This is how they take care of themselves, trying to hold the space for both the ultimate and the relative. And so they develop these habits, which just look really weird. Um, Years ago, one of my teachers, who I never got to meet because she died, I have a picture of her here. I don't know if I can get to it. I'll do another teaching on this. I'll mention one of my teachers, Karma Wangmo, who was this really accomplished Western woman. She died, what was it, 6 years ago now? 7 years ago. And she had spent 12 years in retreats and was just like this shit talking, really like strong willed, like person, teacher, woman. And so she spent 12 years in solitary retreat, up in New York. got teachings from all the great teachers in the Kagyu school during that time, and but she still like she had these things that she just like she kind of got addicted to manage these experiences of being in the ultimate and the relative at the same time. And like one of those things was alcohol, so she really struggled with addiction and ended up passing away due to um, different conditions from alcoholism. Like she passed away from that. She was only 50, maybe 50, 51, at the time. And but these great beings that I've met, they just have these weird things that they do. And you're like, aren't you like realized enough not to like do like these really worldly things? And you're like, oh no, no, actually, like you have to figure out what works for you in this life. Like when my other teacher, Maja Sati Bhagavati, right, who founded Kashi, which is my other lineage, that teaching, um, do things. And she was just like, she loved getting her hair shit. She loved dressing. She loved jewelry. You know, she loved her hair was always, as we say in the community, her hair was on fleek, honey. Her nails were done. Her makeup was done. You know, and you're like, but you're like this super realized being, but you're like really into like fashion. Because that preoccupation was actually something that grounded them in this body and in this life. Now, of course, there are things that we do when we do these things and they are creating physical harm and harm for other people. Then, like, yeah, that becomes that's something we have to grapple with. But when you're just like doing these really weird things, you're like, oh, okay, you know, like my root teacher, Nola Rinpoche, used to watch Mr. Bean. He loved watching Mr. Bean, and I was like, I like Mr. Bean. Don't get me wrong. Like I grew up watching Mr. Bean, but I was like, oh, that's really interesting. You're this elder Tibetan realized master, and you like watching Mr. Bean. You know. Um, so I don't know. I don't know why I just said all. I actually just forget why I was saying that. Um, Let me see. And the questions. It feels like I just ran a marathon sometimes. Exactly, because again, Jude, your energy body is working. Is your energy body has worked out. We're not used to that. Particularly if we're just sitting down, like if we sit down and chant Chinrezi, for instance, right? Like you're not actually, it's not a super energetic practice, but when you start adding pranayama, we're doing, in Mantar, we're doing serious advanced pranayama. We're holding, we're releasing. That's really intense, and you're working directly in the chakras. You're working out, And in terms of like our energy bodies, we're all out of shape, you know our energy bodies are just really out of shape, and these are the practices that we do, like and through your retreat you just spend years just like sitting and doing energy practice, like you're doing the pranayamas, you're doing the visualizations, you're doing the Tibetan yoga, like you're just like energizing and purifying the energy body, and that is painful because we're not used to it. We know what our physical body feels like when we exhausted and we run it, but we don't often know how to connect to our energy body when it's tired, and our physical body has to catch up. So the physical body, like I talk about all of this in Love and Rage, so hopefully you'll get the book next week and you'll read that. But like the physical body and the energy body are in communication, and so they're supporting one another. So when the energy body is struggling, the physical body is going to take up the slack, right? When the physical body is struggling, the energy body begins to take up the slack. But when you're really working both of them out, it becomes this system where they're always like stepping in and out of this like co-creative, co-supportive relationship. They're moving in and out, right? So when my energy body struggles, my physical body comes in and starts adding energy, starts supporting, and vice versa. This is what we're trying to get to, and we get to this point where they're in they're in sync in a way. Like they're in collaboration. The energy, all our bodies, you know, the physical body, the energy body, the mental body, the erotic body, like all these bodies, the ultimate body, all these bodies are just speaking to one another. You know, they're in communication, they're balancing and supporting. That's one of the things we're trying to get to in our practice. Um, what else? Well, the again, plant medicine and Buddhist practice and such, there's no connection. And again, like the problem is we think there is a disconnection. You know, like we can skillfully use plant medicine to support these experiences that we're having in practices. You know, in plant medicine, I can easily connect, you know, in ways to the mother, you know. But in between plant medicine sessions, these the connections become stronger. So you don't take plant medicine and say, okay, I'm gonna have a one-off experience of having this connection. It's not gonna happen again. Actually, plant medicine strengthens our capacity to touch into the essence of the practices, you know, as well. Um, we shouldn't necessarily rely on it, you know, but they're really helpful tools that can help us really connect deeply. Um, and traditions, particularly in the earlier tradition, Buddhist lineages like Insight Theravada, there's a fifth precept, and the fifth precept is against substances, use of substances, right? And that keeps a lot of folks in those traditions from plant medicine. But plant medicine is a medicine, it's not a drug. You know, when we call plant medicine drugs, it's just a colonized worldview of indigenous medicine, you know, of indigenous practices, and we have to decolonize ourselves a little more to understand that, like, you know, wherever it may be, you know, ayahuasca and so forth. I do several kinds of plant medicines. They're medicines, you know, and like I don't, you know, I've never heard of people getting addicted to ayahuasca. You know, it's for me. I'll just say this for me. It's like getting addicted to, like, you know, to like the hardest work ever you can possibly. Plant medicine is just work. It's not like it's not getting high. Like that's the thing. This is not about getting high. It's about work. Like you're doing work. You know, and so when I do plant medicine, I'm working. This is a practice. This is not about getting high. This is about going into pain and woundedness and working through things. And plant medicine and ancestral spiritual practice, some folks may appreciate spring worship. Well, I work with spring too. This is, you know, this is where I learned all of this from. It's like working with her and doing her retreats. You know, we're gonna actually, Spring and I are gonna actually do something. So we're gonna actually do some type of like event online. We've been talking about it, but with, you know, with the quarantine and all this, and then the new movement happening, we've been really just trying to like focus on other things. But we're gonna do something um, as well. Yeah, so that's coming. Don't worry. I I'm a proponent of plant medicine. I particularly if you're working with facilitators and shamans who are actually well trained and part of a lineage and are held accountable, you know, that's really good. You know, so Spring is a really good person to work with. I'm not a facilitator, a plant medicine facilitator at this moment. I'm just a practitioner. So I don't have that capacity yet to lead and guide people. But it's part of my regular practice as well. So that's it. What else should I say? Yeah. just to finish up, this whole enlightened person thing in eccentricity. It's like it's easy to judge people. It's easy to judge people and say you're this realized being, but you love to do like this really strange thing. And realized beings don't have to be monks and nuns or ascetics, and they don't have to like walk around wearing like robes or live in caves, or like be like heteronormative or like monogamous. You know, realized beings don't. They're not these cookie cutter approaches. The problem is, um, exactly, Jude. This is why everyone. Here, let me put this here. I'm gonna type this into the box. A4 Mahasiddhas. So I'm gonna put this in the box here. So this is the 84 Mahasiddhas. I would really, you can do an internet search for them. I would encourage you to read um, this. So there's a couple translations of the 84. I literally keep giving away my copies of the 84 Mahasiddhas. I would show you a copy, but I don't even own a copy anymore. I just gave it to a friend of mine last year. But the 84 Mahasiddhas, read the 84 Mahasiddhas if you can. They're archetypal stories. Some of them are based upon real people, some of them are not. But this is going to give you a really good sense of like what I'm talking about here, that like there's no cookie cutter approach to how spiritual enlightenment is embodied. You know, and they do find you, Jew. That's what I remember. They in the Mahasiddhas, like people, they just like the Mahasiddhas just show up for people. People can be minding their own business. A Mahasiddha shows up and it's like, okay, I'm gonna give you this practice. Now do it. And if you do it, you get enlightened. They when you're ready for a teacher, the teacher emerges. That's just the rule. That's just the law, of the universe. Um, uh, I've read a couple. Keith Dolman is the first one I read, and that was fine. Keith Dolman. Keith, I think Dolman's Dowman, maybe. Um, the Buddha's Lions, James Robeson. I think so. I'm not for sure. So yeah, um, and our job as practitioners is to understand the wisdom of how these beings show up. I have overlooked teachers, really realized teachers because they didn't conform to my understanding of a teacher. I was just like, I was like, you don't fit my parameters of an enlightened person, so therefore I'm going to ignore you. But over time, um, you begin to resonate with the wisdom of people. It's people being themselves, being their most authentic self, and that's what you begin to see. You begin to see people who aren't pretending to be anything. They're just themselves, and that's the teaching that they're trying to offer you. Um, so that's it. So I'm gonna let everyone go because we're past time. So it's a donation box. Please contribute. And so thank you, everyone. Again, this is recorded, so this is always available. So if you want to practice, come back to the recording now. And it's so good to spend these hours with you. It's just, again, I say this all the time. Everything is happening, everything's going on, and you have to rely on the practices. Take refuge in the mother, take refuge in the earth, whatever. Like, just have refuge, allow that refuge to take care of you. You need to be taken care of. Allow the practices to take care of you, okay? All right, friends. I'll see you tomorrow. We have Medicine Buddha at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Be well. And one day we'll all meet in person. whoever that day is. All right, bye everyone.